Collins Crew. We're back with another video. It's the parents again. The kids are getting bigger. It is what it is. Today we're going to be looking at what do British people really think about us Americans. But don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. We post
every Sunday.
Let's get into the video and let's see, why do British look down on Americans?
How do you feel the British perceive Americans?
I feel like there's quite a lot of, I hate to say it, but mockery involved.
I think a lot of people think Americans are extreme.
Do you think that the British think that they're better than Americans?
I think some do, yeah.
There's a lot to make fun of, I think.
We're also fantastic at queuing as well. That's another great thing about us.
They're rubbing me the wrong way because they're too extra. It doesn't seem like it's genuine.
Today, I am in London to get to the bottom of a very important question. For as long as I can remember, I have had the sense that the British look down on Americans. This is a generalization, and therefore doesn't apply to everyone, but it's a strong enough trend that I felt I needed to investigate this further. Here's a quote from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, that perfectly captures the feeling that I have about this. With some, the anti-American sentiment ran very hot. I was reminded of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest.
Those are bad things?
Yes. The bad things in America today.
Too honest?
Too right, yes.
Too rich?
Yes.
Having money is a bad thing?
Yes. That's
Too
bad
confident.
for not just British, that's bad for American people too. American people hate that same thing. Yes. So I can understand why.
Okay, so people are, in a nutshell, just jealous?
Yep.
I mean, that's literally the definition of being jealous.
Yes. And these opinions that we say, these are our thoughts. Don't hold us, don't quote us, don't do nothing for these. These is what we think. Don't try to, you can say what you want to say in your comments. Make your comments cool. We can have a conversation, have a, back and forth dialogue. But you want to criticize somebody, go criticize somebody who's writing papers and doing the statistics. These are just our opinions. But yes, that is the today's sentiment, as they're too loud, they're too rich, they're too happy, they're too straightforward, they're too honest.
I've never heard somebody be upset because you're happy. I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Curious what people are going to have to say about this. I have a feeling I'm onto something, okay? So, having said that, let's start talking to some people. Shooting it for YouTube, could I ask you guys a question? This will be really brief. You hate it? Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry. Not that easy today, huh?
No, it's not. I was wondering if I could just get a moment.
I haven't got too much
We're
time.
off to a very slow start. That's okay. Let's just change up the spot because I'm feeling like there's enough projections in that 100-meter radius.
I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, oh, you're from America, are you? Oh, okay. Which is always you always feel a bit bad about that. So I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being American. It's like, I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here. Okay. At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. Like, when I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, like, you're being American, like, can you maybe not?
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially if you're of colour or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make...
And I knew that was going to be one of the first things that come up was color. Yeah. And it's so sad that we live in a world now that still is prevalent in today's
like that it's still so far,
conversation.
So much in the front. Yeah, I agree.
But I can understand coming from, because when you don't go there, you don't know the language. And
what? They speak English.
I know, but sometimes their English can be a little bit different than ours. And like she was saying, you don't know the language as much because you don't speak it. American, the accent don't come off as like they do. And it's like if you go to...
But an accent doesn't matter. That's just like South and North. That's a ridiculous statement to make, is that you're sorry, this is the worst accent you're going to hear today.
Yeah.
To me, I'm sorry. That's just like me going to New York and the New Yorkers talk like that. I'm not gonna get annoyed at that.
And you don't know the lingo, and you don't know they talk about the chopped cheese and all. You're like, what is that? And it's like, that's what they getting at with that. So
that's ridiculous.
It can be understandable.
If that's something that gets under your skin that bad, you need to stay in the house 100%.
Yeah, it's
that's absolutely ridiculous if that's something that annoys you.
But that's the general statement. That's for a majority of people, and it's prevalent as you can see it.
If that's what it is, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British that go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British that are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second, I thought to myself. That's what Americans do. Other people do this as well?
How dare they copy us?
I kid, of course. Still, it does feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense, I am American after all. Does that not prove my point, though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answer.
Is being called American as an insult? Is it an insult?
I guess over there it is.
If you over there and you're American, you're being called American, that's an insult to you.
No. If someone over there is European and they call the European an American, they're insulting them.
It's only when you're not American, I call you an American, it's insulting.
No, they do it like, okay, like say you're Spanish and you're over there, and they say, quit acting so American.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Knowing that you're not American.
To me, and I know maybe this is not what it's meant to be, but this is why the color thing came up, because in my brain, that's just like saying, quit being so black. Like, how am I supposed to stop doing that when that's what I am? Like, that's just a crazy statement.
But that's,
Anyways.
Directly from the source. My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot like in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. But yeah, I think that's definitely true, because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. Even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a Valley Girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again, it's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. The American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think are you saying it's positive or negative?
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, oh, get out of my face, because they probably...
Okay, I gotta stop you now, I'm sorry. I'm slightly...
Self-reflection and self-improvement is bad.
I'm slightly triggered.
Right?
Yes. For the fact of going and being better, doing better, seeing better.
And you're reflecting on your own practice, you're reflecting on your own behavior, reflecting on... That's a bad thing.
Yeah, and that's...
Like, make it make sense, y'all. That doesn't make sense.
As they say now, you popping your... Yeah, you talking about yourself and this what I'm doing. I got this, I got that, I got this.
And I'm going to go keep it going.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, eating good, smelling good. And that's
bad.
That's boyish to them. It's like they, so what? But that's the hating part. They go to...
That's what we would call a hater.
Yeah. But
you're a hater. Next.
No one likes
contradicting too at the same time. Oh, it's cool, but we don't like it.
Anyway, I think in America it's probably very different. Oh, great, you got a promotion.
The identity of being American is like such a thing,
right?
That I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of being the best. To think that people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way.
That's why they got the...
Okay, but when we are talking about being when I, as an American, am talking about being the best, I am talking about being self-reflective. I am talking about being critical, meaning that I don't need somebody else's criticism for me to improve. I'm going to work and strive to improve to make myself better. It doesn't mean that the country doesn't have issues.
But you got to understand, in a sense, they saying it's a general statement that Americans shouldn't strive, even though this is the greatest country on land.
No, that's what they get irritated at.
Because it is the greatest country on land, and everybody want to strive to go to America to be better, to see better, because you get better opportunities and you get better. And she's speaking on equality as of, we don't care about being better.
But I think that's the thing. People strive to come here. Who strives to go to England?
And then they don't want to. From
that's
my
what
side,
I hear. They do strive to come here because guess what? Even if I go to England, I am never going to be considered English. If you come to America you can come from another place and live here after so many years, and we are going to embrace you now as an American.
She sounded like she don't like the competition, the go get the competition aspect.
But she's talking about healthcare. I mean, to me, I don't know. That's like pot kettle. Like you're telling me England has no issues.
Yeah,
pot kettle means you're not recognizing. That's the pot calling the kettle black. Like you don't recognize your country has issues. Of course, every country has issues. That doesn't mean that just because your country has issues, you can't think that you're the best. Even the best athlete, Michael Jordan, in the world still has issues of ways he needs to fix his craft.
That's competition.
That doesn't mean that he's not the best.
They don't like the competition.
Again, make it make sense.
I got a little triggered.
Yeah. Sorry, we're triggered. Yeah, those comments are going to be lovely.
Yes. It's going to be a fun one.
Having been to America a lot, they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, this big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British? It's more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're, like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these, like, things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
Okay, I think that's a self-proclaimed prophecy of what you think we think.
Yeah, he's projecting right now.
That's what I'm saying. You're projecting.
Yeah, he's projecting.
Like nobody thinks that you are not a force to be reckoned with. When you say somebody's cute, cute meaning like we admire that you guys
get mad that you
no. Let me finish. You admire I do. I admire the fact that you guys have longer history than we do, meaning that you guys still honor things from the past, and that's commendable. I mean, like. America, unfortunately, again, this is not a great thing about our country, but we'll tear a building down in 2 seconds. Yeah. So that's not something that I'm going to sit there and be negative about. That's cool that you guys preserve your history and you honor that history. We honor our history in certain parts, and in certain parts we don't. But to say you're not a force to be reckoned with, I don't know any American that's ever thought that.
It can be said for sometimes, but the fact I want to go back.
I hang out with, God bless. I
want to go back to the point when he said that they say they're cute. We think that it's cute that y'all get mad that we're doing good and we boast on what we say, and y'all get like to the video. Y'all get mad because we saying why y'all look down on Americans, because the reason y'all saying it because we loud, we boast, we rich, we happy. You get mad. It's cute that you get mad that I'm happy.
A little bit.
Or ignorant.
More ignorant. It's not. It doesn't like hurt me. You know?
How do you feel Americans perceive the British? First of all,
they kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on top of everything.
Really project.
There's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on their shoulder a little bit because of that?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than Americans?
Being polite, really.
More polite.
Yeah. More talkative. More helpful.
More helpful. The British are more helpful.
Yeah, than Americans.
That's another good one.
Americans are nice. They've got good music.
Okay.
Got good music. Okay. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on. There's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think is going on here. We are not the same.
Okay. Prime example. He just tried to give the Brits kudos and they kept putting themselves down. We didn't put you down. That's an American saying. You do have good music. Give yourself credit. Like, and you're saying that we put you down, but he's saying, nah, you actually got some good bangers over here. Yeah. And y'all are saying, hey, we don't really have it. To me, again, that's self-deprecating. Nobody self-deprecated. Y'all did it to yourself.
He
the
probably
Brits and the
understand it
Americans. But we
clear.
sure have
It's
a
clear.
lot of similarities. Compare us to the Japanese or to Native Americans or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that is the globe. So here's what all of this started to make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis. I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Because it
wraps up exactly what we just said.
And it wraps up a lot of around us too when you start seeing it and how we act towards each other and towards different natures and
For the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day, I feel like we make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way that we speak and the words that we use. And again, we were talking about this, weren't we? About
we were
certain
talking
words.
about things like autumn versus fall. And it was like that's often something that people like bring up, and for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word, and it's like, fall, American.
You guys don't say
classic.
fall?
No, we don't say fall. We say
interesting.
autumn.
Okay.
So this is autumn, not fall.
But you can say autumn as well. Personally, when I come to the UK, I have the impression that I've come halfway across the Atlantic. I'm not just off the coast of continental Europe. And by that I mean, culturally, it feels so much more similar to the life that I had in the US. The convenience of life, the speed, the capitalism, the language.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in the history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore, so that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. I think the differences in the way our language is, in the way we use different words, that's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? And could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
America's seen as very alpha male, if you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
There's an alpha maleness to America.
Look at it.
And maybe it's just the way they speak, the accent, but you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe, which in theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, you know, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to and sort of being in a situation where, you know, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, you know, they're simplistic, really.
Are you like annoyed by the Americans here in
Sometimes.
I wouldn't say.
Depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me or the US, you have nothing to say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to. And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's flooding house when your own house is on fire.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, and Oklahoma for 3 years. Everyone hears my accent and is like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, well, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. Because they talk about guns or they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, this is people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them, so it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more, and the only word I can think of it is shameful of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a lot more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on, and for better or for worse, the US is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think that the US feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and,
Use words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that,
like I said, I didn't want to say earlier when you said that it's not that we think that we're superpower over you and people don't think that British can't do nothing, the UK can't do nothing. We do think that way. And he just said it. Yeah, the Americans think that we're a superpower over y'all and ain't nothing y'all can do. That's why we think it's cute that y'all get mad.
there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the U.S. is so self-involved. We're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world. So there's not even enough to form an opinion.
Yeah.
You know. Now this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun.
That's true. Like we're not informed enough. I will say that our news does not really portray what happens in anything on the other side of the world. The news and stuff, I'm sorry, he's right. We are self-absorbed in that.
We don't watch it enough. And
that's conceited of us to a certain degree, I guess, in America, because besides the war in Ukraine, and that's still very minimally pushed out in the news, there's not much conversation around. Like I watch like the BBC and they always talk about polls in America about the royal family. We don't pay that much attention to the royal family.
I find our rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. The Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea.
Out of all them, I see one I know.
Family. But I respect the commitment to tradition.
But I did move here the week that the Queen died. So it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of the British as a public was that of mourning for their Queen, the 14-hour-long line to go see her lying in state. So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be, every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans, I think, are a little bit more, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals, and so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there, or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video.
What did you agree with? What do you agree with that they said?
That is cute. That they're cute. Plain and simple. They get mad because we better than them and we poets and act better than them. Yes, we give them health care, but we want our health care system like theirs. Or, or like you say, football, soccer, we done turned over to American football. So cool, but the fact that y'all get mad that we come here to do better, to see better, to live better. It's cute.
What is Demetrius's final takeaway?
My final takeaway is that
it is cute.
It is cute, but you know, we more the same. Like the guy said with the dreads, we more the same. It ain't nothing different. Y'all look at it different. Y'all make it seem like it's a whole big old thing. American Brit. We just like the fact that y'all closer to us when they made that map and said, "Yeah, duh." To be honest with you, it was a good one for me because I didn't think they think like that, but same way we think. So hey, brother.
We're brothers. We're happy and
that's how we're going to end this before we go doing anything else. Thank y'all for checking in. What's your final thoughts? What you thought about it? Golly.
This ending is going way too long.
What you thought about
it? Some of it's a bit shocking. Because I really do think that like he kept saying, throw the rock, hide the hand. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I meant when I said pot kettle. I'm like, come on. And the girl, the little girl with that was kept saying, when the guy asked her, do you like if America's over? She said, like, sometimes. I'm like, girl, you just seem miserable. Like, you do not seem like a happy person.
No,
like,
we're not taking personal shit.
Everybody else, seriously, every other British person I talked to seemed like a very kind, like their statements were genuine. She just seemed like, good Lord, you're about as fun as a bucket of paint drying on the wall. Like, calm down. It's not that deep.
So overall, it's going back to the sentiment of the video.
What my overall takeaway is, we should learn to appreciate the differences, take from the differences that we may need to improve in our own respective countries.
Collectively.
And say, okay, this is good about them. I can use this here. And they're probably saying that's so American for you to find this little silver lining. But I also think what you guys see as good in America, you should take and implement into your country. Everybody can learn from everybody. And to sit there and nitpick everything apart, honestly, to me, just seems like a big waste of time. When we're more similar than we are different. All right, but don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Please remember that we post every single Sunday. And don't forget, Jesus loves you. Bye.